Not in Texas.
He ain't.
There's no South.
I'm explaining a film from 2022 titled There Are No Saints. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. Neto Niente has been in prison for years as a result of the last murder charge he perpetrated on a mother and a kid. He eventually handed himself in to police after feeling bad for what he did in his last act. Neto was eventually freed from prison today, thanks to the assistance of someone who owes him a loan. I'm not sure what he'll do once he's released, but with the tattoos on his body, people will always know and remember what he's done in the past. Carl Abrahams, a guy, was the one who helped Neto get out of prison and picked him up from there. Because he felt indebted, Carl gave some necessities such as money, clothes, cell phones as well as vehicles, so that Neto had the capital to start his new life later. While he was in the hotel, his vehicle alarm went off, indicating that someone had recently touched his car. When Neto emerged, some police officers who despised him began hunting him furiously. The officer believes Neto will not change and should be imprisoned. This is very normal given what he has done in the past, which is totally reprehensible. Neto went to meet his ex-wife, Nadia, the next morning. Neto's motivation was not for Nadia, but for Julio, his 11-year-old son. Julio was overjoyed to finally be able to meet his father after such a long time away, but Julio looked unhappy when Neto couldn't remain with him, while Julia craved for a father's affection. Julio feels pressured by the situation and conditions he is in now, where he and his mother are tired of the attitude of his mother's boyfriend who is often rude, even acts excessively when Julio or his mother makes mistakes. When Neto was away from Julio and looked at his photo, he immediately remembered what Julio had said to his mother's frequently violent lover. Neto, his biological father, couldn't stand it if his ex-wife, who happened to be the biological mother of his kid and also his son, was handled arbitrarily by Nadia's lover. Neto also went to a bar run by his best buddy, a Mexican crime leader, to inquire about the background and origins of the man who became his ex-wife's new boyfriend. It is known that the man in question is named Vincent, a man who owns a property business who turns out to have a side business as a weapons smuggler who works with a cartel from Mexico. After the information about Vincent was deemed sufficient, Neto began to follow where he was going, which turned out to be towards an empty factory where Vincent was already there. The gangster boss said that Vincent was a typical man who was rude to women. This was proven when he threw weekly money at Nadia without the slightest sense of politeness. Neto returned to the hotel, where Julio awaited him. Neto also offered his favorite child to slumber there. Meanwhile, he saw several images taken by Julio himself that included Neto's own face, which made him even more affected and sympathetic toward his own kid. Neto ate alone in the car after returning home with his son. He received a text from Nadia advising him to avoid Julio since there are many adversaries out there who might risk their own children at any time. Just being discussed, several armed men appeared who confronted Neto, out of nowhere and whose orders were these people, but Neto, who had a cold and cruel expression, immediately beat them all without the slightest difficulty. When he got home, Neto got a call from Julio who said that his house was being attacked by some unknown people. It made Neto immediately rush to go there. Neto was shocked when he arrived at Nadia's residence and saw that Nadia had died covered in blood. It comes out that this deed was carried out by Nadia's own lover, Vincent. Vincent motioned to Julio's gun and told Neto not to move or do anything stupid. But Vincent made a huge error by failing to consider who Neto was, since no matter how much Neto was threatened, he would always be able to defeat them. Several police officers arrived on the site shortly after the firefight concluded. Meanwhile, Neto had to let his son be kidnapped by Vincent. I don't know what was really going on, but because he was at the scene of the commotion, Neto was accused of being a suspect in the incident. This made him again have to become a fugitive from the police. For the second time, Neto found Carl for assistance in locating Julio. Carl was unaware of this, but he understood who was behind it. The person is an arms dealer dubbed Jet Rink, who obtains his weaponry from Vincent, who knows exactly where he is going and where his base is. Neto went straight to Jet Rink's club after receiving money and a car. There, Neto meets Inez, a female bartender who will assist Neto in meeting Jet Rink's girlfriend, Kali. Kali was the one who would take Neto to Jet Rink's house right away, and when he arrived, Kali quickly introduced Neto to Jet Rink. Neto pretends to admit that he works for Vincent and is conducting a survey on orders from his boss. Unbeknownst to Neto, Jet Rink is Vincent's best friend, who knows him and who his colleagues know. When Jet Rink realized that Neto was lying, Jet Rink immediately took a gun to kill him.
Tell you what I know. If he's not in Texas,
He ain't.
there's no South.
After receiving information about where Vincent went, Neto returned to the club to meet Inez with the aim of asking for help crossing the Mexican border, according to the location where Vincent was hiding. But then 3 Mexican teenagers entered and asked Neto to go to the bathroom. The 3 of them made a terrible mistake since they didn't realize what sort of man they were dealing with at the moment. Inez was ultimately prepared to pretend to be Neto's wife for a cost of roughly $600. This was done to get Neto across the border into Mexico, and the 2 of them ultimately made it through without incident. Neto and Inez arrived to the inn after the cops were distracted by Inez's captivating beauty and elegance, and Neto allowed Inez to depart or come back because her task was done. But apparently after Inez heard the story about Neto's chronology and purpose of coming to Mexico, Inez was finally willing to help him again, but on the condition that the fee was doubled. Inez will try to seduce Vincent with her seductress skill, until Julio is found. Inez was unable to obtain any information on Julio as a result of the meeting, but there is still hope when Vincent invites them to another meeting at his home, hoping that this time there would be some information regarding where Julio is being kept. When Inez arrived at Vincent's place, she was instantly encouraged to drink with him. While there, Vincent smacks Inez, because it comes out that he already knows that Inez is merely pretending to approach him for a specific reason. When Vincent was going to injure Inez, Neto came and tormented him. Vincent was tied to a chair in his kitchen and drenched with hot water before having his nails removed and burned with embers. It didn't stop there. Neto cut off his fingers one by one until Vincent screamed in pain. This was simply done so that Vincent would tell him where Julio, Neto's son, was hiding. Based on Vincent's confession, it seems that Julio has been sold to a man named Sands, a former secret ATF agent who now runs a business of kidnapping famous people, where Vincent deliberately sells Julio to get ransom money to pay off his debt. Neto phoned Bailarin, the Mexican mob boss, after killing Vincent to find out who the man named Sands was and where his headquarters were. When Neto learned of Julio's location, he advised Inez to go home and not become involved again, but Inez obviously has a deep link with this situation and resolves to return to follow Neto until Julio is located again. Neto, who was at the boxing club, began to inquire where Sands was. While waiting, Neto and Inez were abducted and transported to Sands' residence. When Inez was taken first, Neto began to show his shrewdness by killing everyone in the car so that he could follow where Inez was taken. Located in the wilderness, Neto began to walk following the path to Sands' headquarters. Neto entered the CCTV room, where there were several kidnapping victims, including Inez. And here is Mr. Sands, the kidnapper Neto is on the lookout for. There, you can see Julio being tied upside down exactly above the well. Clearly, Sands has a very good reason for buying Julio. It's not a coincidence, but there is a better motive, namely retribution. Because it was discovered that Neto had previously murdered Sands' wife and children. Surprisingly, when Julio was drowning and Neto was rebelling, Mr. Sands stood there helplessly and did nothing. Mr. Sands actually shot one of his men, just because he stubbornly wanted to kill Neto. Apparently Master Sands didn't want Neto to die so easily before he could feel his heartache when his own flesh and blood died right before his eyes. When all his men were dead, Mr. Sands approached Neto to feel how satisfied he was after making Neto suffer. After everything was done, Neto carried Julio's body along with the other victims, including Inez. After properly burying his kid, Neto opened the trunk of his car and found Bailarin, the mob boss, who was known to have betrayed him by saying where and how he had gone, so Neto chose not to repent. That's it for now, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to remain up to speed on our latest film recaps. Your support would be appreciated. I hope to see you next time.